Hey there, my Stampin' friends. Susan here with our fun folds for the month of June. This one is the center easel fun fold, so it'll stand up and display itself. It gives you a space inside where you can write a message, pop-up sentiment there. And we're going to make this out of one 6x6 and a little trim of an extra piece. So this one doesn't take a lot of DSP if you want to use coordinating papers front and back. So it's kind of nice that way. So we're going to use Flirty Flamingo and Retired DSP Hello Irresistible. And we're going to go ahead and make this fun fold. Okay, so let me get my paper cutter in here and we will get started. So I'll open this up. So this one has two bases. One is referred to as the mount, which is the backing, and then there's the easel base, which is the part that opens and closes. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim one piece of 8.5 and 11 down to a quarter sheet. So I need 5.5 by 4 1/4. So 5.5, and then turn it and get 4 1/4. So that's our quarter sheet cardstock, and that's going to be the mounting back panel. Okay. Then we need the easel part, and the easel part is 8 by 3 1/4. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to cut it at 3 1/4. And as you can see, if you wanted to just make one of these, you could have taken that 8 1/4, 3 1/4 out of the second half of that first piece, but because I'm making multiples of these, I'm just going to go ahead and use a different piece. And then this one has to get shortened from 8.5 down to 8. So I'm going to shorten this one to 8. So just a little bit of scrap there. Now this easel part needs to be scored at 2 and 4. So first I'm going to switch my blade up, and then I'm going to bring this back and I'm going to score it at 2 and slide it down, score it at 4. Okay, 2 and 4. And then I need another mounting panel for this front piece that's going to go on our card, and that one needs to be 3 1/4 by 4. So I have a piece of scrap here. I think there's going to be enough. Is it 4 is the question. It is just enough to be 4. Okay, so 4 by 3 1/4. 3 1/4. So the same width as our easel part. Okay. And then we're going to need one more piece for the mount on the inside, where our inside sentiment's going to go. So let me pull another piece of scrap out. This is why I like to keep my scrap color sorted, so that if I just need a small piece, I can go and pull a piece from my papers. So the inside mount has got to be 1.5 by 2 3/4. So let's see, 2 3/4 by 1.5. Okay. So I think we have all the cardstock pieces. Now we've got to do our DSP stuff. Alright, so our front panel DSP is 3 by 3 3/4. So I've got a 6 by 6. I'm going to cut it down to 3. Okay, and then my front piece, this panel here, and my inside piece are the same size. I'm going to use the front and back of the same panel. So 3 by 3 3/4. Okay, I need 2 of them. So first I'm going to flip one over. Let's see. I think I'll use that one for the front. So I'm going to flip this one over and cut it at 3 3/4. Okay, so that's going to be my inside back here. Then I need another piece that's going to go here, and I want the same thing. This one needs to be 2.5 by 1 1/4. So let's see, 2.5, not that way. So we're going to go 2.5 this way, 2.5 by 1 1/4. I'll turn it this way. Do I want more yellow or more pink? I'm going to go with a little more yellow. So 1.5. Well, nope, 1 1/4. Okay, 1 1/4. So that's going to be the piece that I stamp a sentiment on. Okay, now for my front panel, I'm going to take it from here. I'm 3, I need 3 1/4, 3 3/4, I should correct. So let's see, I don't think I can get all of it, but if I put that at 3 3/4, oh, no, see, I'm going to cut this flower off if I do that. So I'm going to slide it down a little. We'll do some selective cutting. So I'm going to slide that down so there's a little bit of a gap above that flower. And then I'm going to turn it around and cut it to size. So 3 3/4. So there, and then I'll just trim off the bottom. So that way I was able to get the top of the flower in my, keep it in my image. So it was selective cutting. Okay. And then we need 2 1-inch panels for down the side. So I happen to have a 2-inch piece of scrap, I believe. Yes, I do. I'm going to cut it at 4 inches first. Do I want more yellow or some of the pink? I'm going to go with more of the yellow. Alright, so 4 inches. And then I need 1 inch. I need 2 of them. So I'm just going to go right down the middle. So I'm going to cut that at 1 inch. Trim it in half, so now I've got 2 1 by 4 inch pieces. Alright, let's put my cutter away and build our fun fold. Okay, so I'm going to set the sample over here while I make this. Okay, so I've got my back panel. Alright, I've got my 2 side pieces. I've got the piece that's going to go in the middle as my easel. Okay, it's all going to get pushed in and mounted with a little bit of framing around it. Okay, then I've got my inside backer piece, right, my liner. I've got my pop-up, which I'll put on pop-up dots. I've got the piece I'm going to stamp a sentiment on. I'll do that before I put it on. And then I've got this other piece for the front that I'm going to frame in here, and then this will fold down, and we're just going to adhere here so that when we put this on, it will pop up. Okay? So, pretty easy, isn't it? Yeah. But it's a lot of cutting, and, you know, but it's fun. So, here we go. Alright, so our 2 side pieces are going to be stepped in with a little bit of framing on both sides. And I'm just going to, so if our card is 4 1/4 deep, right, 4 1/4, and these are 4, that means it's 1/8 of an inch edging. So not big, but enough that you can see it. Okay? So just try to make your edging equal on the top, the bottom, and the one side. Alright, now let's do the other one. Flip this over, same idea. Oop. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to use my bone folder and give these 2 scores a crease before I put it on my card. Okay, so this is the easel part. It's going to fit right between those 2 pieces we put on, and there's going to be a little bit of frame at the top and a little bit of frame at the bottom. So keep that in mind. So I'm just put adhesive on the back, and then I'm just going to line this up with my edger right there, and position it in the center of those 2. There we go. So see, I've got a little bit of frame here, I got a little bit of frame there. Alright, now we can put our inside piece in. Now if you wanted to do the flower again, right, it's your card, you can do it the way you want to. It's totally an option, but you're not going to see most of it because it's going to be covered. If you wanted to switch these, right, if you want to be artistic and switch them, you could put the bigger flower panel on the inside, right, with this covered up. and then when they'd open it all the way, they'd have more flowers, and then this would be your front piece for the card. So when you make your card, you have options as to which pieces you want to use where, but I'm going to do it with just the background in there and use the full flowers on the front. So this way, this is more of a neutral piece, and if you wanted to write a note in here to them that wouldn't be on display necessarily when the card was on display on their windowsill or their mantle, you could do that. Alright, now I'm going to pop up this footer with dimensionals. That way it'll create like the easel stand for the card. And I'm not putting this other piece on yet because I want to stamp on it first. I am going to put this piece down. Okay, and again it just gets stepped in, 1/8 of an inch, and that way it's framed inside of the card. Okay, so there's that. And let's go ahead and do this last front panel. Put this on. And then, I've noted it before, but I'm going to say again, we're only putting adhesive on this 2-inch section. Okay, so just put adhesive here, and then line this up. It's the same size as that easel card folded in half, so you can just line up the bottom, lay it down, give it a press. That way when it's all folded up, it fits inside our framing, and then when we pop it up, it'll stand up with that footer in there. Okay? Alright, so now let's go ahead and do a little bit of stamping, and we'll finish the card off. So I'm using the Irresistible Blooms Retired Stamp Set because it was designed to go with this paper, and I thought, okay, let's do that. And then I've got my Flirty Flamingo ink out, and I had to re-ink it this morning, so I'm hoping it behaves for me. Let me get this so I can stamp. Now I'm going to stamp hello and put it on the front, and then I'm going to stamp I couldn't be happier to be your friend on this little piece. I'm actually going to do that piece first, so it has a second to dry before I have to manhandle it. Alright, so let me get some ink on there. I've got a little scrap piece on my side to make sure it's got nice solid ink. Okay, so alright, I'll try not to rock and roll it. So I'm going to square my paper on my grid, and then I'm going to do my best to get my stamp centered. It's just the right size to get it from end to end, so we'll hope that it works. It works. Yay! Good. Stamp for the wind. Okay, then the other one I'm going to stamp is just hello. And I'm going to use a retired oval punch, but you could use dies or any other shape or punch you wanted to, or you could trim it out. I'm just going to punch that out in the oval and put that on the front. Okay, so let's open this up. So this one's going to go on the inside. So I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid adhesive on there. I'm going to flip it over. If my fingers cooperate, there we go. Put this here. Okay, and then this one I will put on some dimensionals. Put this on the front. This would be fun with some die cuts behind it, I think. So when this stands up, I think I want the hello up here. So my hello will go up here, like that, and then when it opens up, you see the inside piece. So there we go. Okay, so stampers, have fun with your kits. Remember, I love to see you guys using them in your own projects. Please send me photos via email whenever you want to share, do a little show and tell with me. I love it. And I will have another fun fold for you in the next video. So until then, do some fun stamping. Bye!